You feel it in the solar plexus first. It is a tightening, a sudden drop in temperature within your own chest, occurring the moment you walk into a specific room or answer a call from a specific person. Before they have even spoken a word, before you have consciously analyzed their facial expression, your body has already sounded the alarm. You find yourself suddenly exhausted, drained of vitality, your mood plummeting from contentment to anxiety in the span of a heartbeat. Later, you will lay awake at 3 a.m., replaying their subtle slights, their passive-aggressive comments, or their overwhelming tragic narratives, feeling their emotions processing through your system as if they were your own. You feel responsible for their chaos. You feel guilty for setting boundaries. You feel like a sponge that has soaked up a spill of toxic oil, and no matter how much you wring yourself out, the stain remains. You tell yourself this is because you are sensitive, or kind, or perhaps just weak. You believe that if you just explain yourself better, if you just love them enough, the dynamic will change. But deep down, in the darkest recess of your intuition, you know the truth. You are losing. You are being harvested, and the exhaustion you feel is not merely tiredness, it is the debris of a psychic invasion. Whatever you think this is, anxiety, high sensitivity, or mere social fatigue, Jung identified it as something far more primitive and perilous. He called it participation mystique, a state of unconscious identity where the subject cannot distinguish themselves from the object. But in the modern era, amidst the noise of a hyper-connected society, this phenomenon has mutated into a distinct psychological condition. You are suffering from what I call pathological porosity. This is not a moral failing. It is a structural flaw in your psychic defense system that allows the shadow content of others to bypass your conscious gatekeepers and infect your emotional core. You are letting them win, not because you are submissive, but because you do not yet understand the mechanics of the game you are playing. To understand why you are constantly defeated by the narcissist, the energy vampire, or the chaotic personality, we must look at the terrifying intersection where Carl Jung's mysticism meets the cold, hard data of modern neuroscience. Jung believed that the psyche is not a sealed unit. He argued that at the unconscious level, we are all connected in a vast subterranean ocean called the collective unconscious. For most people, the persona, the mask they wear, acts as a diving suit, protecting them from the crushing pressure of this ocean. But for you, the diving suit is compromised. Neuroscience has finally caught up to what Jung saw in his visions. We now know about the existence of mirror neurons, specialized cells in the premotor cortex and inferior parietal lobule. When you see someone smile, your mirror neurons fire as if you were smiling. When you see someone in pain, they fire as if you were in pain. This is the biological basis of empathy. However, in the brains of those suffering from pathological porosity, these neurons are hyperactive. There is a failure in the temporoparietal junction, the part of the brain responsible for distinguishing self from other. When the predatory personality enters your space, they are projecting their shadow, their repressed shame, their rage, their unacknowledged inadequacy, outwards. A normal brain observes this projection and rejects it. Your brain, however, mimics it. You are not just observing their anger, you are physiologically simulating it. Your cortisol spikes, your heart rate variability drops. You are literally hallucinating their internal state and mistaking it for your own reality. Jung warned that emotions are contagious, calling this psychic infection. You catch their mood just as you would catch a virus, and just like a virus, once it is inside, it hijacks your machinery to replicate itself. This is why you cannot simply stop caring. You are fighting a biological imperative that has been reinforced by years of conditioning. You have developed the Surrogate Regulator Reflex. This is a term I use to describe the unconscious habit of regulating another person's nervous system at the expense of your own. When the predator is chaotic, you become calm. When they are angry, you become apologetic. You are acting as an external dialysis machine, filtering their toxic emotional blood through your own clean kidneys. They feel better after talking to you because they have successfully transferred their negativity into your vessel. They leave the interaction feeling lighter, absolved, and energized. You leave the interaction feeling heavy, confused, and physically ill. They have won. They have successfully exported their shadow. Consider the archetype of the wounded healer, a concept Jung was deeply fascinated by. But let us look at the dark inversion of this archetype, the martyr. Jung often spoke of the danger of inflation, of being possessed by an archetype. The martyr is possessed by the belief that suffering for others is a form of holiness. In reality, it is a form of unconscious suicide. By constantly opening your gates to the dysfunction of others, you are not healing them. You are enabling their pathology while destroying your own individuation. Jung treated many patients who suffered from this lack of psychic skin. He observed that they often came from environments where they were not allowed to exist as separate individuals, environments where the parent's mood dictated the climate of the entire household. In these scenarios, the child learns to anticipate the needs of the parent before the parent even speaks. This survival strategy, while effective in childhood, becomes a devastating liability in adulthood. It creates a vacuum in the psyche, a lack of a solid ego-self axis. Because you do not feel solid in your own identity, you readily accept the projections of others to fill the void. You become a screen upon which they project their movie. The tragedy is that the people you are trying to save, the ones you are letting win, despise you for this. Jung noted a cruel paradox in human nature. We often attack the very thing that supports us if it displays weakness. By failing to assert your boundaries, by engaging in the surrogate regulator reflex, you are signaling to their unconscious mind that you are a resource to be consumed, not a peer to be respected. You are unwittingly inviting the invasion. Let us look at a specific mechanism Jung described: the shadow. The shadow is everything we deny in ourselves. The narcissist denies their insecurity, therefore they project arrogance. When they target you, they are essentially handing you their trash bags of insecurity and demanding you carry them. When you accept their insults, when you internalize their gaslighting, you are agreeing to carry the shadow they are too weak to bear. You become the container for their darkness. This is why you feel so heavy. You are carrying the psychological waste of people who refuse to clean up after themselves. But there is a way out. It does not involve becoming cold or heartless. It involves a radical restructuring of your psychic architecture. It requires you to move from pathological porosity to what I call selective empathic immunity. This is not about building a wall. Walls can be battered down. This is about building a filter. It is about learning to observe the chemical reaction in your mirror neurons without consenting to the emotional transaction. It is about understanding that your empathy is a form of energy currency, and right now, you are leaving the vault door wide open in a city of thieves. To begin this transformation, we must first dissect the anatomy of the attack. We must look at the specific stages of how this psychic transfer occurs so that you can spot it before it breaches your defenses. Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. We are about to make the mechanism of your defeat conscious so that fate can no longer touch you. To illustrate this, we must examine a case study based on the archetypal patterns Jung observed in his practice. Let us consider a patient we will call Julian. Julian was a man of immense intellect and patience, a stabilizing force in his corporate career, known for his ability to handle high-pressure negotiations with calm detachment. Yet, he came to analysis in a state of near total disintegration. His hands trembled. He suffered from chronic insomnia and undefined autoimmune symptoms, the body's somatic cry when the psyche is silenced. Julian was married to a woman who was outwardly charming but privately chaotic, a person who oscillated wildly between adoration and contempt. Julian believed he was the strong one. He believed that by absorbing her rages, by remaining stoic while she screamed, and by soothing her anxieties late into the night, he was performing a noble duty. He was practicing what he thought was love. But Jung would have diagnosed Julian not as a loving husband, but as a victim of projective identification. This is a defense mechanism in which the subject, the wife, not only projects their intolerable feelings into the object, Julian, but acts in a way that forces the object to actually feel those emotions. Julian described a specific sensation. He would come home feeling lighter, happy about a promotion, but within 10 minutes of entering the house, he would feel a crushing wave of depression, while his wife, who had been sullen all day, would suddenly become cheerful and energetic. He had unknowingly engaged in the osmotic transfer. She had offloaded her depression into him. Because Julian lacked a psychic immune system, because he had high mirror neuron activity but low ego differentiation, he accepted the transfer. He spent his nights metabolizing her darkness so she could wake up light. He was not a partner, he was a human waste management facility. This dynamic is not random. It follows a precise algorithmic pattern that occurs in almost every interaction between a pathologically porous empath and a predatory personality. I have categorized this cycle into the 3 phases of psychic parasitism. You must memorize these phases, for they are the map of your own enslavement. The first phase is the golden reflection. This is the lure. Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to greet the world. When the predator first engages you, they do not show you their true self. They show you a mirror of your own ideal self. Your hyperactive mirror neurons pick up on their intense focus, and your brain releases a flood of dopamine and oxytocin. You feel seen in a way you never have before. But this is not intimacy. It is reconnaissance. They are scanning your defenses, looking for the cracks in your armor, your need for validation, your fear of abandonment, your desire to be the good person. They are gathering the data they will later use to dismantle you. In this phase, you are not falling in love with them, you are falling in love with the reflection of your own empathy shining back at you. Once the hook is set, they initiate the second phase, the dissonance spike. This is where the feeding begins. Suddenly the rules change. The validation is withdrawn without warning. A small mistake triggers a disproportionate rage. A neutral comment is twisted into an insult. In neuroscience, this triggers the amygdala hijack. Your fight or flight response is activated, flooding your prefrontal cortex with cortisol and norepinephrine. This chemical cocktail shuts down your rational thinking centers. You cannot think clearly. You can only feel. This is where the trap snaps shut. Because you are suffering from pathological porosity, you do not assume they are being irrational. You assume you have done something wrong. You frantically try to restore the equilibrium of the first phase. You over-explain, you apologize, you pour your energy into fixing the misunderstanding. Jung called this state abaissement du niveau mental, a lowering of the mental level. Your consciousness drops and you become suggestible. You are now wide open to their projection. They are creating chaos not because they are confused, but because chaos is the frequency at which they can harvest your energy. They need you destabilized. A fortress with its guards on high alert is hard to breach. A fortress in the middle of a riot is easy to plunder. This leads to the final and most destructive phase, the shadow displacement. This is the moment of the exchange. Having whipped you into a state of emotional frenzy and guilt, the predator now projects their own malice onto you. They accuse you of being the angry one. They call you the abuser. They label you as unstable. And the terrifying part is, in that moment, you are. You are screaming, you are crying, you are filled with a rage that does not belong to you. You have become the manifestation of their shadow. They step back, calm and collected, looking at you with disdain. "Look at how crazy you are," they say. "I can't talk to you when you're like this." They walk away, feeling superior, calm, and purged of their internal tension. They have successfully transferred their disorder into your system. You are left shaking, depleted, and filled with a toxic shame that will take days to process. This is the shadow mirror effect. You are reflecting their darkness so perfectly that they no longer have to look at it in themselves. If you recognize these phases, you likely feel a sense of dread. You realize that your kindness has been weaponized against you. You realize that your patience was actually a form of self-betrayal. But Jung teaches us that the realization of the shadow is the first step toward wholeness. You cannot defeat a demon you cannot name. Now that we have named the mechanism, we must look at the specific signs that this has caused structural damage to your psyche. We must identify the symptoms of chronic empathic fatigue. There are 4 specific signs that your psychic boundaries have been eroded to a critical level. The first is hyper-vigilant scanning. You enter a room and immediately scan the micro-expressions of everyone present. You are tracking the emotional temperature like a meteorologist tracking a hurricane. This is not intuition. This is a trauma response. Your reticular activating system is stuck in the on position, filtering every sensory input for danger. You are burning massive amounts of glucose just to exist in a social space, which explains your chronic physical lethargy. The second sign is the chameleon reflex. You find yourself involuntarily shifting your personality, your tone of voice, and even your opinions to match the person you are speaking to. You do this to avoid conflict, to remain invisible, to keep the peace. Jung warned that if we identify too much with the persona, the mask, we lose contact with the self. You have become a collection of masks with no face behind them. You have adapted so thoroughly to the needs of others that you no longer know what you actually like, what you actually want, or who you actually are. You are a fluid, taking the shape of whatever container you are poured into. The third sign is somatic internalization. Because you cannot express your anger outwardly, fearing it will destroy the relationship, you turn it inward. Jung noted that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. Instead of suffering the pain of setting a boundary, you choose the neurosis of physical illness. You develop migraines, digestive issues, skin conditions. These are not random ailments. They are the physical manifestation of swallowed aggression. Your body is trying to reject the foreign psychic material you have absorbed. The fourth and most dangerous sign is the resentment loop. You feel a deep, simmering rage toward the people you claim to love. You resent them for needing you, yet you are terrified they will leave. You fantasize about running away, about living in a cabin in the woods where no one can perceive you. This is the introvert's retreat. You are starving for solitude because solitude is the only state in which your boundaries are automatically intact. But running away is not the solution. Isolation is not immunity, it is merely quarantine. To truly win, to stop letting them win, you must stop running. You must stand your ground and undergo a process Jung called individuation. You must build a new container for your psyche, one that is transparent enough to see the world, but strong enough to keep the ocean out. You must move from being a sponge to being a mirror. But how? How do you override the biological wiring of your mirror neurons? How do you silence the voice that tells you that saying no is an act of violence? The answer lies in a technique I call cognitive dissociation. It is a method of hacking your own empathy. It requires you to split your awareness in the heat of the moment, to become the observer of the interaction rather than the participant. It is the practical application of Jung's concept of the transcendent function. It is the art of being in the chaos, but not of it. Cognitive dissociation is not about numbness. It is about engaging the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, to override the primitive panic of the amygdala. It is the ability to stand in the presence of a screaming narcissist or a weeping energy vampire and view them not as a threat, nor as a tragedy, but as a specimen. You must cultivate the clinical gaze. When they begin their cycle of projection, instead of asking yourself, "What did I do wrong?" you must ask yourself, "What are they trying to export right now?" You must institute the 5-second void. Neuroscience tells us that the emotional hijack of the brain takes less than a second to initiate. But if you can pause the reaction for 5 seconds, the prefrontal cortex comes back online. When they insult you, when they deploy the guilt trip, you do not respond. You do not defend. You do not reassure. You breathe. In that silence, you break the circuit. You sever the invisible umbilical cord through which they feed. You will see a flicker of panic in their eyes. They are waiting for the dopamine hit of your reaction, and you have starved them. This brings us to the practical application of selective empathic immunity. You must visualize what I call the glass wall. It is a mental construct where you can see them, you can hear them, you can understand their pain, but the kinetic energy of their emotion cannot touch you. You are observing the storm from behind a pane of reinforced glass. You can have compassion for their drowning, but you are no longer jumping into the water to drown with them. Jung was very clear on this. The best political, social, and spiritual work we can do is to withdraw the projection of our shadow onto others. But the inverse is also true. The best work you can do for yourself is to refuse the projection of others onto you. When you employ the glass wall, you are performing an act of the return to sender. By refusing to absorb their shadow, you force them to keep it. You force them to sit in their own emotional waste. This is the only thing that might actually heal them, though it will feel like cruelty to you at first. They will escalate. They will attack the glass. They will call you cold, unfeeling, arrogant. Do not be fooled. This is what behavioral psychologists call an extinction burst, a temporary increase in the frequency and intensity of a behavior when the reinforcement is removed. They are trashing the room because the vending machine has stopped dispensing the product. Hold the line. If you break now, you teach them that they just need to scream louder to get what they want. If you hold, you teach them that you are no longer a host. But there is a final, deeper layer to this strategy. It is not enough to simply block them. To be truly immune, you must integrate the very thing you fear. You are targeted because you appear harmless. You are targeted because you have repressed your own capacity for aggression. Jung argued that the only way to be truly good is to be capable of great evil, and choose not to do it. If you are harmless, you are not virtuous. You are merely a victim in waiting. You must develop the integrated shadow. You must find the part of yourself that is selfish, the part of you that is arrogant, the part of you that wants to scream. You must stop hiding these traits in the basement of your subconscious. When you acknowledge your own capacity for darkness, you lose your fear of theirs. You are no longer terrified of the monster because you have met the monster in your own mirror. This is the secret of the dark empath, not the manipulator, but the realized individual. The realized individual has the sensitivity of the empath, but the boundaries of the warrior. They can touch the soul of another without losing their footing. They possess sovereign compassion. This is compassion that is given from a position of power, not extracted from a position of fear. It is a gift, not a tax. When you reach this stage, the dynamic shifts permanently. The predators sense it. They rely on the scent of fear and the signal of compliance. When you integrate your shadow, you no longer emit that signal. You emit a frequency of wholeness. They will simply pass you by, looking for easier prey. Or, even more profoundly, they will be forced to transform in your presence because their old tricks no longer work. This is the ultimate victory. It is not about defeating them. It is about outgrowing the game entirely. You have been told that your sensitivity is a disorder, that you are too thin-skinned for this world. Jung would argue the opposite. He believed that the neurosis of the individual is often the precursor to the evolution of the species. Your sensitivity, your hyperactive mirror neurons, your ability to feel the collective pain, this is not a defect. It is an evolutionary adaptation. You are the sensing organ of the collective consciousness. The world is shifting. We are moving from an era of rugged individualism, which has led to isolation and destruction, toward an era of necessary interconnectivity. The human species is trying to develop a higher capacity for empathy, and you are the prototype. You are the early adopter of a new neural architecture. The pain you feel is the friction of a new consciousness trying to be born in an old, rigid world. But a prototype that destroys itself is useless. A lighthouse that burns down its own foundation saves no ships. You have a responsibility to this gift. You are not meant to be a martyr. You are meant to be a guide. But you cannot guide anyone if you are constantly lost in their swamp. You must treat your energy with the same reverence a priest treats a sacrament. It is finite, it is holy, and it is yours to command. Stop casting your pearls before swine, for they will only trample them and then turn to tear you to pieces. Reclaim your nervous system. Retrain your amygdala. Withdraw your projections and refuse the projections of others. Step out of the role of the victim and into the role of the observer. The pain will not disappear, but it will no longer run you. You will feel it, acknowledge it, and let it pass through you like wind through a screen, leaving no trace. The cage door has been open the entire time. You only stayed because you thought you were the only one who could comfort the jailer. Walk out. The world needs you whole, not broken. The world needs you to see the darkness, not to become it. This is the path of individuation. It is the path of the hero who descends into the underworld not to stay there, but to return with the gold. You have been in the underworld long enough. It is time to ascend. See you in the next dimension.